heard about Kenny Atkinson's plan, and it's working without question. Again, you wrote another article, and I'm curious. Inside the drastic change that the Cavs made on defense in preparation of the playoffs, what prompted it? What are you talking about? Take us through that article.
The change that they've made, Dave, is that they have become a switch-heavy defense. If you think back to JB Bickerstaff and when the Cavs had him as their head coach, everything was about taking away the paint, protect the paint at all cost, funnel everything to the two bigs, be a no-middle defense, and that worked for them. Like there is no way that you can argue with the results. They were a top 10 defense for 3 straight years under JB Bickerstaff. But when you get into the playoffs, a playoff environment usually calls for something different. And Kenny Atkinson saw this in Golden State. He saw it during his time in Brooklyn. He saw it his 1 year with the Los Angeles Clippers. When you get into a 7-game playoff series, you better be able to switch on the defensive end of the floor because switching on defense takes an opposing offense out of their normal offensive flow. It forces them into more isolation attacks. It forces them into more of a one-on-one game. The Cavs used it against the Boston Celtics when they beat the Celtics earlier this year because Boston wants to have this free-flowing offense. They want to take a bunch of threes. But if you force them into one-on-one situations, it takes them out of what they want to do on the offensive end of the floor. And that requires Darius Garland taking physical challenges. That requires Donovan Mitchell taking these challenges. It requires attention to detail, focus, communication, all that kind of stuff. And Kenny Atkinson believes that when the Cavs get into the playoffs, because they're more capable of being a switch-heavy defense, that they can match up better with Milwaukee, with Boston, with Atlanta, with New York, with some of these other teams because it's going to take them out of their usual offensive rhythm. It all depends on whether you have the right personnel to do it. But I think the Cavs believe that they have enough versatility on the defensive end of the floor and they have enough guys that can guard multiple positions in a given matchup that they can get away with this. Now, look, that's led to some slippage, right? At one point this year, Dave, they fell out of the top 10 in defense, but it's not about right now. It's not about December. It's not about January. It's about instilling these habits and getting comfortable with a particular scheme that they think is going to benefit them when it comes to the playoffs. Because the majority of teams that have won championships over the last 5 years have been near the top of the NBA in terms of switching ball screens. And under JB Bickerstaff, the Cavs were near the bottom of the NBA in that particular category. With Kenny Atkinson, there isn't another team in the NBA that is switching more on the defensive end of the floor than the Cavs.
The other thing that does, Chris, is it goes back to what he said. He said we have to figure out how to be playing our best basketball in the playoffs, and
Yep.
that kind of reinforces this on the defensive side of the basketball.
Yeah, you're right about that. I mean, if you think about the kinds of teams that they're going to be playing against and what's going to be demanded of the Cavs on the defensive end of the floor, like it's not just going to be one thing over and over and over again. You're going to vary your coverages. You're going to vary your defensive attack, but you have to be able to have this in your back pocket, this kind of scheme that has proven effective with the right personnel over the last 5 to 10 years in the NBA. And if you're playing against New York, you better be able to switch. If you're playing against Milwaukee, you better be able to switch. If you're playing against Boston, that switches a bunch on defense themselves, you better be able to switch. And you better be able to have multiple guys that you feel like can defend multiple positions in those kinds of situations. And I think because the Cavs have Jared Allen and Evan Mobley as the last line of defense, they're also able to go out there and guard on the perimeter. And having bigs that are that level of versatile, that level of skilled, that quick, that athletic, that can defend on the perimeter just the way that they can defend at the rim, that's an asset that the Cavs have. So you have to be able to take advantage of that on the defensive end of the floor.